Greetings and peace to you all. This is Umi. Thank you guys for joining me for another video. And today I wanted to explore squares and oppositions in the natal chart and why we should celebrate and embrace squares and oppositions. And this comes by way of my own experience with researching my natal chart. So for those of you who are new to astrology, you've probably pulled up a natal chart, or even those of you who are kind of, intermediate, you're studying, you read interpretations of certain aspects by astrologers that, online, or astrologers you may know. You explore these aspects, and sometimes what you discover isn't all that pleasant, and it could really be discouraging. And you can read about certain things and think, gosh, I have 5 squares or 2 oppositions in my natal chart. The planetary bodies are always in a sort of communication with one another, that planets aren't just exclusive and isolated floating out in space, but there's some type of synergy or alchemy happening on a planetary level. Now, this is within the study of astrology. So when the planets are communicating at the time you were born, either that communication was harmonious and light and pleasant and smooth, or that communication was a tussle. It was a squaring off of the planets. It was an opposition, planets opposing one another, applying or separating. And there are a lot of factors that can really reveal just how intense you may experience the squares and oppositions in your chart. But let's take an example of Mars squaring Mercury at the time you were born. So your communication style with Mars squaring Mercury could indicate someone who is very forceful in their speech. Maybe you like to dominate and control conversation. Perhaps you're a bit aggressive when you talk, and it could be abrupt to people. They could be easily offended. You can speak your mind. Mars is about competitiveness. Mars is about speed. So maybe you talk really fast. Mars is also about just a very fiery energy. So that forcefulness can sometimes push people away or affect your relationships, how you express yourself, or even how you think. You may find that your thoughts are always racing. Mercury does deal with our thought processes and our creative expression, so your thoughts could be quite violent. You may seem like a pleasant person on the outside, but little do people know what you're thinking on the inside, racing thoughts, or even, again, aggressive or violent thoughts. But you can transform this. So if that square in opposition is presenting you with these types of behaviors, your early character flaws demonstrate a poor communication style with Mars and Mercury. As this becomes refined, as you mature and develop in these energies, in that square, you can perhaps transform your communication style to be someone who's a great salesman. You know how to talk fast and pitch to people, and they may even find it quite, entertaining or alluring. Or you may have the ability to really dominate a room and speak with such authority that you could be a great public speaker or leader. People want to listen to you, someone who's militant, and you speak with firmness. So you can maximize on that square. If at one point it was a challenge for you, it could certainly become your greatest asset. So this is why squares can be very beneficial, is look to see what was once challenging. And if 2 fighters were squaring off, best believe before they even got in the ring with each other, granted this was an organized fight, one has studied the opponent. You've studied your opponent. So you've studied this other planetary body and its energy and the influence it brings, and you're able to kind of enter into that fight a little more prepared. You can come out victorious when you're dealing with planetary influences. This is happening within you when you're aware of its influence on you. So that's one way that squares and oppositions, which definitely can be a little more intense, can serve to really strengthen your character. It could serve, you have a vast reserve of power within you when you have squares and oppositions. Some of the most wealthiest people, the most successful people in the world, business people and people in positions of power and authority, have squares and oppositions in their chart because they're built and designed to deal with pressure, to deal with stressful situations, to deal with adversity or setback or failure. It's as if consciously or unconsciously with squares and oppositions, it's like a need to break through. It's a need to prove someone wrong. It's a need to overcome. It's a need to succeed or achieve. The overall purpose of our squares and oppositions on a soul level is to allow us to test our will, test our capabilities as humans. So quite powerful aspects. I really encourage everyone to kind of take a different approach and perspective at the squares and oppositions. And if you found them to be challenging, how can you observe it differently so that it supports you, it works in your favor, and you're no longer operating and acting out the lesser qualities of the squares and oppositions. And I find it interesting when I look at the Sun opposite Pluto video that I did when I scroll through the comments. It's quite funny to me when I read people saying, you know, I dated someone who was Sun opposite Pluto and they were a sociopath or they were crazy, they were manipulative. Yes, there are going to be lesser manifestations of these oppositions and squares, the same way with trines and sextiles, more harmonious aspects, there are lesser manifestations. People can be quite lazy when they have a chart with all of these wonderful, benevolent trines and sextiles because there's no need to really, there's not a strong ambition. There may not be a strong will or need to overcome, you know, adversity in life. For some people, that's wonderful just to have a very simple kind of standard life. But I think with the challenges in life, it makes life a little more interesting, a little more spontaneous, a little more daring. So, you know, welcome the trines and the sextiles, but see also where you may have plateaued, where you're not challenging yourself, maybe where things come so easy for you that, you know, oh, my parents let me live here, so you're just going to stay at home until whenever, and there's no real desire to get out in the world and travel or try, you know, explore your identity and who you are apart from family. So a lot of layers to that. Squares and oppositions, as I mentioned, on a collective level. Squares and oppositions on a collective level absolutely affect the things that we see in terms of protests or uprisings, in terms of how the public responds to governmental change or how the public responds to changes in society, like with social media, how that has really influenced and affect human communication. And so when there are squares and oppositions happening, on a global collective level, many people use this opportunity to gauge things like the stock market, to make certain choices as to travel or what projects or ventures they're going to embark on, because squares and oppositions can denote the success of these things. It can denote some challenges or setbacks, but it can also denote something that is going to be very strong in its foundation when things begin under the stress and the tension of, you know, world or collective events unfolding. So something that can be instituted or started during this period can actually withstand a lot of, you know, stress. So it's something that's being built to survive. And this again can apply to even relationships. So it's just depending on the aspects and the energies that are speaking and communicating. But I wanted us to look at squares and oppositions as an opportunity to celebrate what's being strengthened within us, how we're being built to withstand future challenges, or even just when we're in the moment, we're not overtaken or we don't succumb to the emotional eruptions and reactions because we're that much more aware of our inner power and how to harness it and how to control it. So if you could put all that square opposition energy that fuels you, that can anger you, that can set you on this path of ambition to overcome, to victory, then find a way to really ground that within yourself and to just know how to apply it in life and when to apply it. Don't allow your speech to get a hold of you in situations that would have otherwise been an opportunity. So I'd like to put this reminder out there that, of course, with the astrology, it does not make us or force us to do or act or behave a certain way. The more and more you are centered and grounded and you know thyself, the more and more you exercise your faith just in life, and you find and seek peace and balance in life, you're not going to be as easily influenced anyway. Regardless of what you've read, you're just coming into alignment with your purpose, yourself, you know, the God that resides within you, and that's going to really set you on your path. So have faith in that. Never be discouraged by something you've read, or never feel discouraged by even planetary influences, because at the end of the day, it's our awareness and again, that knowledge of self that helps us to walk a certain path and to be guided by that light, that inner wisdom. And so we're not going to be easily pulled and shift or even distracted by what's happening around us. So I wanted to speak that piece to you all. Operate in love. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, peace.